Daniel Carter sat in his expansive office, a sleek, modern space adorned with trophies, framed awards, and accolades that gleamed under the bright overhead lights. The walls were painted a calming gray, but the atmosphere felt anything but soothing. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city bustled with life, indifferent to the turmoil brewing inside him. He had built an empire, a testament to his relentless drive and ambition. Yet in this moment, surrounded by symbols of success, he felt an overwhelming sense of emptiness. With a heavy sigh, he leaned back in his plush leather chair, running a hand through his tousled hair. The scent of polished wood and expensive cologne filled the air, but all he could think about was Emily. Memories of their time together flooded his mind, each one sharper than the last. He could almost hear her laughter, a melodious sound that seemed to echo in the silence of the room. They had shared dreams of travel, of building a life filled with love and adventure. But just like that, those dreams had been shattered. "Daniel, are you there?" His assistant, Sarah, knocked lightly on the door, interrupting his reverie. "Yeah, I'm here," he replied, forcing a smile, even though she couldn't see it. "Just checking in. You have that meeting with the board in 30 minutes. Are you ready?" "Sure, just give me a moment," he said, waving her off. As she left, Daniel's gaze drifted back to the city below. He thought of the last time he had seen Emily, how vibrant she had been, her eyes sparkling with life. They had strolled through the park, hand in hand, talking about their future. The memory was bittersweet, a reminder of everything he had lost. He picked up a framed photo from his desk, a snapshot of them at the beach, Emily wearing that radiant smile that could light up even the darkest days. It was a cruel twist of fate that such joy could be so fleeting. Just then, a familiar ache gripped his heart, a painful reminder that she was gone. He placed the photo back down, his fingers lingering on the glass for a moment longer. "Get it together, man," he muttered under his breath, shaking off the melancholy that clung to him like a heavy fog. Hours passed, and the meeting felt like a blur. Daniel nodded along with the discussions, his mind elsewhere, lost in thoughts of Emily. He could feel the weight of his grief pressing down on him, making it difficult to concentrate. After the last of the board members had left, he stood up, feeling the need to escape the confines of his office. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow over the city. He decided to take a stroll in the local park, a place that had once been special for both him and Emily. As he walked through the park, the sounds of laughter and children playing filled the air. The scent of blooming flowers wafted by, and for a brief moment, he felt a flicker of peace. But that peace was quickly overshadowed by the memories of Emily, who had always loved this place. "Look at those flowers, Daniel. They're beautiful," he recalled her exclaiming one sunny afternoon. "Not as beautiful as you," he had teased, earning a playful punch on the shoulder. Now, standing there alone, he felt like a ghost haunting the places they had once shared. He wandered aimlessly, his heart heavy with longing. And then he saw her. In a small clearing, a gardener worked diligently, her hands deep in the soil, a focused expression on her face. As he drew closer, his breath caught in his throat. She looked just like Emily. The resemblance was uncanny, the same striking features, the same gentle way of moving. It was as if he was staring at a reflection of his past. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice trembling slightly. The gardener looked up, surprise crossing her face. "Yes?" Daniel's heart raced. I'm sorry to bother you. You look a lot like someone I used to know." She smiled politely but didn't seem to recognize him. "I get that a lot. People often say I have one of those faces." "Right, of course," he said, trying to suppress the wave of disappointment that washed over him. He studied her more closely, taking in the way her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, the way her hands worked with the earth as if it were a natural extension of herself. There was something about her presence that felt oddly comforting, yet painfully familiar. "I'm Daniel," he introduced himself, extending a hand. "Lily," she replied, shaking his hand with a firm grip. He felt a jolt at the contact, as if a spark of energy had passed between them. "What are you working on?" he asked, trying to keep the conversation going, to hold on to this moment just a little longer. "Just tending to the flowers," she said, her eyes lighting up. These dahlias should bloom beautifully in a few weeks. They're my favorite." Emily loved dahlias, he whispered, almost to himself. "Really?" Lily asked, tilting her head curiously. "They're such vibrant flowers. I love how they bloom in so many colors." Daniel nodded, his mind racing. He wanted to ask her so many questions, to know if there was any connection between them, but the words caught in his throat. As he watched her work, he noticed something glimmering around her neck. It was a necklace, delicate and beautiful, the pendant shaped like a small heart. His heart sank as recognition hit him like a wave. It was identical to the one Emily had worn, a cherished gift from her mother. "Where did you get that necklace?" he blurted out, unable to contain his curiosity. "Oh, this!" Lily touched it lightly, a smile playing on her lips. "It was my mother's. She always said it brought good luck." Daniel's breath hitched. The world around him suddenly faded, and all he could focus on was Lily and the necklace. "Your mother," he repeated, trying to piece together the fragments of his thoughts. "What was her name?" "Marianne," she said, her expression shifting slightly. "She passed away a few years ago." The air around him felt thick with unspoken words, and Daniel's heart raced with a mixture of hope and fear. Could it be possible that this woman, this stranger, held the key to understanding the void within him? "I'm sorry for your loss," he managed to say, his voice steadying. "Thank you," Lily replied, her eyes momentarily clouded with sadness. Daniel stood there, grappling with the emotions that surged within him. He felt drawn to Lily, as if she were a beacon of light in the darkness of his grief. Yet he also felt a deep conflict raging inside him. Was it right to feel this way? Could he dare hope that she was somehow connected to Emily? "Do you come here often?" he asked, trying to regain his composure. "Every day," she answered with a smile. "Gardening is my therapy." "Therapy sounds nice," he said softly. "I could use some of that myself." They exchanged a few more words, but Daniel's mind was racing too fast to fully engage. He wanted to know everything about her, to uncover the mysteries that seemed to bind them together. But as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park, he knew he had to make a choice. He took a step back, glancing at his watch. "I should go, but I'll be back. I'd like to talk more." Lily nodded, a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "I'll be here." As he walked away, his heart pounded in his chest. Questions swirled in his mind, each one more pressing than the last. What was it about Lily that felt so familiar? Why did his emotions churn so violently within him? He knew he couldn't ignore this connection, this pull toward her. Daniel Carter had spent far too long living in the shadows of his past, and for the first time in a long while, he felt the faintest glimmer of hope. The journey ahead promised to be difficult, but perhaps it was time to uncover the truth and embrace the possibility of something new. Daniel Carter found himself gravitating to the park more frequently than he had anticipated. Each day he would arrive early, the soft morning light filtering through the leaves, casting a gentle glow on the path. He would sit on the same weathered bench, a few paces away from where Lily tended to the flower beds. The familiar scent of wet soil and blooming flowers surrounded him, a stark contrast to the sterile corporate air of his office. Yet while the park was filled with life, Daniel felt trapped in a world where the past loomed large, and the present was a mere shadow. He watched Lily with a mixture of admiration and trepidation. There was something enchanting about the way she moved among the flowers, her fingers delicately brushing against the petals, as if she could coax them to bloom even brighter. As he observed her, he couldn't shake the feeling that she was somehow a living echo of Emily, and it unsettled him. He wasn't just drawn to her resemblance. There was a deeper connection that he yearned to understand. One afternoon, while Daniel was lost in his thoughts, the park ranger, a sturdy man with a sun-kissed face and kind eyes, approached him. "You come here often, don't you?" he remarked, leaning casually against the bench. Daniel nodded, trying to mask the intensity of his feelings. "Yeah, I guess I do. Just needed a change of scenery." The ranger followed his gaze toward Lily, who was now kneeling by a patch of daisies. "She's something special, isn't she? Lily's got a way with plants that I've never seen before. It's like they talk to her." "Yeah," Daniel replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've noticed. The ranger paused, his expression turning serious. You know, she's been through a lot. Lost her family in an accident a few years back. It hit her hard. This park has become her sanctuary. Daniel felt a pang in his chest. The thought of Lily suffering through loss resonated with him. I didn't know, he said softly. I can't imagine what that's like. Most people don't, the ranger said, looking out at the horizon. But it's made her stronger. She channels that pain into her gardening. It's like she breathes life into the earth itself. Daniel's mind raced, reflecting on his own grief. He understood the weight of loss all too well, and the notion that Lily transformed her pain into something beautiful sparked a flicker of hope within him. Perhaps there was a way for him to confront his own demons, to find solace in shared experiences. With that thought lingering, he began to visit the park even more frequently, each day building the courage to speak to her. Days turned into weeks, and he found himself captivated by her laughter, the way she would talk to the flowers as if they were her companions. He learned to appreciate the little things, the way the sunlight danced on her hair, how her eyes sparkled when she spoke about her favorite blooms, or how she could lose herself in a moment, completely unaware of the world around her. It was one crisp morning when Daniel felt a surge of determination. As he approached Lily, he could sense the urgency in his heart. He had to introduce himself, to break the silence that had hung between them like a fragile thread. Hey, he said, his voice steady despite the fluttering in his stomach. Lily looked up, surprise etching her features. Oh, hi there, she replied, brushing dirt from her hands onto her jeans. I didn't see you there. I'm Daniel, he said, extending his hand, a nervous smile creeping onto his face. Lily, she said, shaking his hand, her grip firm and warm. Nice to meet you, Daniel. I've been coming here for a while now, he confessed, feeling a rush of vulnerability. I've seen you working. You're really talented. Her cheeks flushed with a hint of pink. Thank you. I love what I do. It's therapeutic, you know? Daniel nodded, feeling the weight of her words. I understand. It's a beautiful way to cope. He hesitated, searching for the right words. I've had my share of loss, too. It's, hard to move on sometimes. Lily's expression shifted, her eyes softening. I get that. It's like you carry a piece of that person with you, and letting go feels impossible. Exactly, he murmured. But sometimes, I think we find ways to honor their memory, through the things we love. The silence between them held a profound understanding, as if they were two souls adrift in a sea of grief, finding a temporary lifeline in one another. What did you lose? She asked gently, her curiosity genuine. Daniel took a breath, considering how much to share. He knew this could be a pivotal moment, but the fear of overwhelming her held him back. I lost someone very dear to me, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily, she was everything to me. Lily's eyes widened, and for a moment the world around them faded. I'm so sorry, she whispered, her voice filled with empathy. It must be really tough. It is, he admitted, feeling the weight of his admission, but I'm trying to remember her in the best way possible. I want to keep living, even when it feels impossible. Lily nodded slowly, and a shared silence enveloped them, rich with unspoken feelings. It's okay to feel lost, she said softly. Sometimes we just need to find our way back to ourselves. Her words struck a chord deep within him. Daniel felt a sense of connection with Lily that he hadn't anticipated. There was a spark in their conversation, a flicker of hope amidst the shadows of their pasts. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the air grew cooler, and the moment felt suspended in time. Daniel hesitated but finally summoned the courage to ask, would you like to grab a coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about your gardening, and maybe share more about Emily. Lily's eyes brightened. I'd like that, she said, a smile breaking across her face. I could use a break from the dirt. Daniel chuckled, the tension in his chest easing slightly. Great. How about tomorrow? There's a nice cafe down the street. Sounds perfect, she replied, her smile infectious. As they parted ways, Daniel felt a sense of anticipation bubble within him. For the first time in a long while, he felt the possibility of connection, a chance to explore the delicate balance between remembering Emily and discovering something new with Lily. The echoes of the past began to harmonize with the promise of the future, and he couldn't help but feel that perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter in his life. The next day, they met at the cafe, and Daniel felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as he waited for Lily. The chatter of other patrons faded into the background as he focused on her arrival. When she walked in, her hair catching the sunlight, he felt a rush of warmth. She waved, her smile radiant, and he suddenly realized that every moment spent with her was a step forward, a chance to heal. "Sorry I'm late. I lost track of time with the plants," she said, settling into the chair across from him. Daniel chuckled. "No need to apologize. I get it. Plants can be very demanding." As they sipped their coffee, they delved deeper into their stories, sharing laughter and moments of introspection. Daniel found himself captivated by Lily's passion for gardening, how she spoke about each flower as if it were a cherished friend. She spoke of the joy of nurturing life, of helping things grow, and Daniel couldn't help but wonder if he was beginning to feel a similar urge to nurture something new within himself, perhaps even a new bond with Lily. But as the conversation flowed, Daniel hesitated, grappling with the urge to share more about his past, the darkness that had become intertwined with his identity. He feared it might scare her away, that the weight of his grief would overshadow the lightness of their budding friendship. Yet as Lily spoke, he saw a resilience in her spirit that inspired him. Maybe it was okay to be vulnerable, to let her see the scars he carried. After all, they were both navigating their own paths of healing, and perhaps they could help each other find solace amidst their shared experiences. With that thought lingering, Daniel resolved to take the leap. He would share his truth, and in doing so, he hoped to cultivate a deeper connection, a bond rooted in understanding, compassion, and the possibility of new beginnings. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the park, Daniel Carter felt a sense of calm wash over him. The laughter of children playing nearby and the distant chirping of birds created a soothing backdrop, a stark contrast to the turmoil within him. He had spent the last few days contemplating his burgeoning friendship with Lily, the gardener who bore such an uncanny resemblance to his late girlfriend Emily. Each time they met, Daniel found himself drawn deeper into the memories of his past, yet simultaneously captivated by the promise of a different future. Lily knelt beside a patch of vibrant tulips, her hands expertly working the soil. She was in her element, and Daniel couldn't help but admire her dedication. The way she moved, her fingers digging into the earth, reminded him of Emily's passion for nature. The way she would lose herself for hours planting flowers in their backyard, her laughter mingling with the rustling leaves. "Daniel!" Lily called, her voice bright and cheerful as she glanced up, her hair catching the light. "Come help me with this." He approached her, a smile breaking through the heaviness in his heart. "What do you need me to do?" "Just hold this pot steady while I add more soil," she instructed, her expression serious yet playful. Daniel complied, watching her as she concentrated, her brow slightly furrowed in determination. "You have such a talent for this," he remarked, genuinely impressed. "It's like you're in tune with the plants." She looked up, a hint of shyness creeping into her smile. "Thank you. I've always loved gardening. It's therapeutic, you know? It helps me forget things." Her eyes flickered with a hint of sadness, and Daniel felt a pang of empathy for her. "What do you mean?" he asked carefully, wanting to draw her out without pressing too hard. Lily paused, her fingers brushing against a blooming petal. "I lost my family in an accident a few years back. Gardening helps me find peace, a way to reconnect with them, in a way." Daniel's heart ached at her words. He understood loss all too well. "I'm sorry, Lily. I can relate. I lost someone very special to me not long ago." They shared a moment of silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Daniel's mind raced back to Emily, the laughter they shared, the dreams they had, now shattered. The weight of grief had been a constant companion, but here, in the presence of Lily, he felt a flicker of hope. "Maybe we could do something together," Daniel suggested, an idea forming in his mind. "What if we started a community garden? You could lead, and I could help with the organization and funding." Lily's eyes lit up at the suggestion. "That would be amazing. I've always wanted to do something like that, to give back to the community. It would be a way to bring people together." "Let's do it then," Daniel replied, his excitement growing. They began discussing potential locations and plants, their conversation flowing effortlessly. For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt a sense of purpose. As they mapped out their plans, Daniel noticed a small book lying on the bench nearby. Curious, he picked it up and thumbed through the pages. "What are you reading?" he asked, glancing at the title. "Oh, it's just a book on gardening techniques," Lily said, her cheeks flushing slightly as she reached for it. "I'm trying to learn as much as I can." "Mind if I take a look?" he asked, flipping to a random page. His heart stopped when he spotted a familiar photograph tucked between the pages. A candid shot of Emily laughing in the sun, her hair dancing in the breeze. The resemblance was striking. It was as if he were looking into a mirror reflecting the past. "Where did you get this?" Daniel's voice was low, almost a whisper, as he felt the world around him fade away. Lily's expression shifted, confusion creasing her brow. I found it in a library book." "Why? Do you know her?" His heart raced as he struggled to process this new revelation. "This is Emily. She was someone I loved very much." The weight of his words hung heavily in the air, and he felt as if the ground beneath him had shifted. Lily's eyes widened in surprise and concern. "I'm so sorry, Daniel. I didn't know. I thought it was just a random photo." "It's not just a photo," he insisted, grappling with the emotions swirling in his chest. "You look just like her. And that necklace you wear?" Lily touched the delicate chain around her neck, her fingers brushing against the pendant. "This was my mother's. She wore it all the time." Daniel's mind raced. The necklace had been a gift from Emily's grandmother, a cherished heirloom that had been passed down through generations. "Your mother? Did you ever talk about her?" "No, not really. I lost her when I was young, and my dad didn't like to talk about her much. It was always just us two after the accident." His heart sank as he listened to her story. "Lily, I need to know more. There's something about this connection that feels significant." "I've never heard of Emily," she replied softly. "But if she meant something to you, I'd like to understand. Maybe we can piece this together." Daniel felt a mix of hope and dread. He was drawn to Lily in ways he couldn't explain, yet the shadow of Emily loomed large over their interactions. "It's just so strange," he murmured. "You bear her likeness, and now this photo. It feels like a thread tying us together in ways we can't yet comprehend." Lily nodded slowly, her brow furrowed in thought. "Maybe we're more connected than we realize, but I don't want to intrude on your memories of her, Daniel." He took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "You're not intruding. It's just, the more I learn about you, the more my heart feels torn between the past and the present." "Maybe it's time to let go of the past, Daniel," she suggested gently, her voice soothing yet firm. "Emily will always be a part of you, but you deserve to find happiness again." He felt a surge of emotion at her words. "You're right, but it's hard. I'm afraid of moving on." Moving on doesn't mean forgetting. It means allowing yourself to find joy again, even if it's different from what you had before," Lily replied, her eyes steady and reassuring. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the park, Daniel felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. Maybe this unexpected connection with Lily was the first step toward healing, a chance to embrace the future while honoring the past. "Let's work on that community garden," he said, determination filling his voice. "Together, we can create something beautiful." Lily smiled, and in that moment, Daniel felt the weight of his grief lift, if only just a little. Together, they would cultivate not just plants, but a new beginning, one that could bring light back into their lives. Daniel Carter tossed and turned in his sleep, the weight of his memories pressing down on him like a suffocating blanket. In his dreams, he wandered through a foggy landscape, where shadows flickered and whispered secrets he couldn't quite grasp. Then amidst the haze, she appeared, Emily, radiant and ethereal, her laughter ringing like a distant chime. "Daniel," she said, her voice soft yet filled with urgency, "you have to let me go. You need to find peace." He reached out to her, but as always, she slipped through his fingers like sand. "But I don't know how," he pleaded, desperation lacing his tone. "Look for the light," she urged, her figure beginning to fade. You have to embrace the present. Daniel jolted awake, the remnants of the dream swirling in his mind. The morning sun streamed through the window, casting warm rays across his sheets. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, trying to shake off the lingering feeling of loss. The dream had felt so real, so urgent. He glanced at the clock and realized he was late for his meeting with Lily at the community garden. After hastily dressing, Daniel made his way to the park, his heart quickening with anticipation. He spotted Lily kneeling in the soil, her hands covered in earth, a look of focused determination on her face. She was beautiful, and in that moment, he felt a flicker of hope, a possibility of healing. "Hey, Daniel," Lily called out, her smile brightening the morning. "I'm glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it for the world," he replied, though an unsettling knot formed in his stomach. The memory of Emily still loomed large in his heart, a ghost tethering him to the past. As they worked side by side, planting seeds and arranging flowers, Daniel felt a connection growing between them. Lily's laughter danced in the air, and for the first time in what felt like ages, he felt a semblance of joy. But the guilt nagged at him. Was he using Lily to fill the void left by Emily? "Daniel, do you know what this flower symbolizes?" she asked, holding up a delicate bloom with vibrant petals. "What is it?" he replied, trying to focus on her rather than the turmoil within him. "Hope," Lily said softly, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, something beautiful can emerge." He couldn't help but admire her passion. "That's beautiful," he said, his voice sincere. "You have such a way with these plants. It's like you breathe life into them." Lily shrugged, a hint of modesty in her demeanor. "I just love what I do. It's therapeutic, you know? It helps me forget everything." Daniel nodded, sensing an unspoken weight in her words. "I understand," he replied, a heaviness settling in his chest. "We all have our ways of coping." As they continued working, the sun climbed higher in the sky, and the community garden began to take shape. The air buzzed with excitement as neighbors arrived, eager to contribute and share in the sense of community Lily had fostered. "Daniel!" a voice called out, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Mark, one of Daniel's old friends from high school, flanked by a couple of wealthy acquaintances. "What are you doing here? I didn't know you got your hands dirty." Daniel's stomach twisted. "Just helping out," he replied, forcing a smile as his eyes darted to Lily, who was busy chatting with another volunteer. "Helping out? Looks like you're playing gardener now," Mark said, laughter bubbling from his lips. "Is this what you do on your weekends? Where's the real Daniel Carter? The businessman?" Lily glanced over, sensing the tension. Daniel felt a surge of protectiveness toward her, but he also felt the pressure of his friends, expectations weighing down on him. "Actually, I've found that this is more rewarding than any board meeting," Daniel said, trying to keep his tone light. "Building something meaningful?" Mark raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback. "Interesting. I never took you for the sentimental type. But hey, if this is your thing now, who am I to judge?" The conversation shifted, and Daniel felt himself retreating into the background, the laughter of his friends echoing like a distant memory. He watched Lily interact with the other volunteers, her spirit infectious, and felt a pang of guilt. She was so genuine, so full of life, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he was dragging her into a world filled with complications. As the day progressed, Daniel found himself caught between two worlds, the glittering life of his wealthy friends and the simple beauty of the garden, where Lily flourished. He introduced her to the townspeople, his voice echoing with pride as he described her vision and passion. The locals embraced her with open arms, enchanted by her warmth and charisma. Daniel felt a swell of admiration for her, but his heart ached with shame. Later that evening, as they packed up for the day, Daniel turned to Lily, his expression serious. "You were incredible today," he said, his voice earnest. "Everyone loves you." "Thanks, Daniel," she replied, her cheeks flushed with happiness. "It means a lot to be accepted here. I've always felt like an outsider." "Why is that?" he asked, genuinely curious. Lily paused, her gaze drifting to the horizon. "I guess I've always been different. My past, it's complicated. It's hard to fit in when you carry so much baggage." Daniel felt a pang of empathy, understanding her struggle all too well. "You're not alone, you know," he said softly. "We all have our battles." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the garden, Daniel felt an urge to reach out to her. But the moment was shattered when Mark and his friends sauntered over again, their judgment evident in their expressions. "Hey, Daniel," Mark called, a sly smile on his face. "You sure you want to be seen with her? I mean, look at her. She's, well, different." Daniel's heart raced, fury bubbling beneath the surface. "What's that supposed to mean?" he shot back, his voice rising. "Just saying," Mark shrugged, feigning innocence. "You're a businessman. This isn't exactly your crowd." Lily's face fell and Daniel's heart sank as he realized the effect of Mark's words. He glanced at her, and in that moment, he saw the hurt in her eyes, a reflection of his own internal conflict. "Lily is amazing," he said, the conviction in his voice unwavering. "You don't know her like I do." Mark chuckled, clearly unfazed. "Suit yourself, man. Just don't say I didn't warn you." The group walked away, leaving Daniel feeling exposed and conflicted. He turned to Lily, who was now avoiding his gaze, her expression pained. "I'm sorry about that," he said, reaching for her hand. "They don't understand." "I get it, Daniel," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But maybe you should listen to them. I'm not the kind of person you're used to." "Lily, please," he implored, desperation creeping into his tone. "I don't care about their opinions. I care about you." But she stepped back, pulling away from his touch. "You say that now, but what happens when they start asking questions? When they judge you for being with me?" "Lily," he began, but she shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "I can't be the reason you lose your friends, Daniel. I won't be that person." Her voice trembled, the pain evident. "Don't say that," he pleaded, feeling the chasm between them widening. "You matter to me. You've brought light back into my life." But the shadows of doubt loomed large, and as he watched her turn away, he realized he had let his world fracture once more. The guilt clawed at him, the weight of his past mingling with the uncertainty of the present. The garden, once a sanctuary, now felt like a battleground of emotions. Daniel stood there feeling lost as the echoes of laughter faded into the distance, leaving only silence and the haunting reminder of the choice he had to make. Daniel Carter stood at the edge of the park, the vibrant colors of the flowers and the laughter of children echoing around him. But all he could feel was the weight of remorse pressing heavily on his chest. It had been weeks since he had seen Lily, the gardener who had stirred something within him that he thought had long been buried with Emily. The memory of his rash decision to distance himself from her gnawed at him, turning each day into an exercise in self-flagellation. His heart raced as he remembered the look in her eyes when he had turned away, the hurt that had flashed across her face, a mirror of his own despair. Now she was engrossed in the garden, her sanctuary, where she seemed to find solace amongst the blooms and greenery. Daniel could see her from a distance, kneeling beside a patch of marigolds, her hands buried in the earth, as if she were trying to plant herself firmly in this world, away from the pain that had shadowed her past. "Lily?" he called softly, taking a hesitant step forward, but the word felt stuck in his throat. The last time they had spoken, he had led his friends. Judgments cloud his judgment, forcing a wedge between them. Now, it felt impossible to breach that gap. He watched her for a moment longer, captivated by the way her hair caught the sunlight, the way she moved with purpose and grace. "Hey!" A cheerful voice jolted him from his reverie. It was one of the local children, a boy named Tommy, who often played in the park. "You're back. Are you going to help Lily again?" Daniel smiled weakly. I hope so, Tommy. I need to talk to her first." "Cool, she's really good at making the garden pretty. She taught me how to plant carrots," Tommy exclaimed, bouncing on his toes. "Yeah, she's amazing," Daniel agreed, his heart heavy with the thought of how much he had taken her presence for granted. He watched as Tommy ran off to engage with other kids, and for a fleeting moment, Daniel felt a twinge of hope. Maybe if he just approached her, things could change. With a deep breath, he steeled himself and walked toward her. "Lily," he called again, this time louder, more insistent. She looked up, her expression a mix of surprise and apprehension. "Daniel," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a tension in the air, a palpable reminder of the distance that had grown between them. "I've missed you," he admitted, the words escaping him before he could second-guess himself. Lily stood, brushing dirt from her hands, her gaze flitting to the ground. "I've been busy," she replied, her tone neutral, masking the hurt he could sense beneath her words. "The garden needs a lot of work." Daniel's heart sank. "I know I messed up. I let my friends' opinions dictate my actions, and I shouldn't have. I'm really sorry, Lily." She crossed her arms defensively, her eyes narrowing slightly as she studied him. "You think that just saying sorry will fix everything? You turned your back on me, Daniel. Do you have any idea how that felt?" "I know, and I hate myself for it. I've spent every day regretting it." He took a step closer, desperate to bridge the distance. "I want to make it right. Can we talk?" Lily hesitated, her expression softening just a fraction. "We can talk, but I'm not sure there's anything to fix," she said quietly, yet there was an openness to her tone that gave him hope. They moved to a bench nearby, the warmth of the sun casting a gentle glow over the scene. "I've been thinking about you a lot," Daniel admitted, his voice earnest. "About how you reminded me so much of Emily. I should have realized that it wasn't fair to you or to me." "Emily?" Lily echoed, her brow furrowing slightly. "You've mentioned her before." "I know. I'm sorry if it feels like I'm using you to fill a void. That was never my intention. You're not just a substitute for her. You're your own person, and I see that now." Lily's expression softened further, but she remained guarded. "It's hard for me to hear you talk about her. I get it. She was someone important to you, but I'm not her. I can't be." "I don't want you to be," Daniel replied quickly. "I want to know you for you, not for the resemblance. You've become important to me in your own right." Lily looked away, her gaze drifting to the garden they were trying to cultivate together. "It's just, I've got my own past to deal with. It's complicated." "I understand that," he said gently. "I want to help you through it. You don't have to face it alone." She turned back to him, a glimmer of vulnerability shining through her guarded demeanor. "You don't really know me, Daniel. You don't know what I've lost." "I want to learn about you, about your life," he insisted. "I want to understand what you've been through. Please, let me in." As they sat in silence, the weight of their shared experiences hung in the air. Daniel felt a surge of determination. He needed to know more about Lily, especially now that he had discovered that her past may be intertwined with Emily's own history. He had overheard whispers from some of the townspeople about a tragedy that had befallen Lily's family, a car accident that had taken everything from her. "Lily," he began cautiously, "I heard something about your family, about the accident. Is it true? Did you lose—" Her expression darkened, and she cut him off. "I don't want to talk about that." "Okay," he said softly, sensing the boundary she had drawn. "But I want you to know that whatever happened, it doesn't change how I feel about you now." She sighed, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly as she looked at him. It's a part of me that I'm still trying to understand. I lost my mother, and it's not something I've ever been able to talk about without feeling like I'm drowning." Daniel nodded, his heart aching for her. "I can't imagine how painful that must be, but you're not alone anymore, Lily. I'm here." As they spoke, they were interrupted by the sound of laughter nearby. A group of children had begun to play, their joy contrasting sharply with the heaviness that had settled between Daniel and Lily. "Look," she said, gesturing toward the children. "They're just being kids. Maybe we could plant flowers here for them. Something colorful that will make them smile." "That's a great idea," Daniel replied, his spirits lifting. "Let's do it together." With a tentative smile, Lily nodded. "All right, let's go get some seeds." As they stood to head back to the shed, Daniel felt a weight lift from his chest. The road ahead would be challenging, but there was a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, they could navigate the storm together. Yet in the back of his mind, the unsettling thought lingered. What secrets lay buried in their pasts, waiting to be uncovered? Little did he know that the truth about their intertwined fates was closer than he could ever have imagined. Daniel and Lily stood in the tranquil embrace of the community garden, the vibrant colors of blooming flowers surrounding them like a protective barrier against the world beyond. It was a place where they had spent countless hours, planting seeds of hope and nurturing the fragile bond that had formed between them. Yet as they sifted through the remnants of Lily's past, new revelations loomed like dark clouds on the horizon. Lily held the necklace between her fingers, the sunlight glinting off the delicate metal and the intricate design that echoed her mother's taste. "Do you think it's possible," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "that we are connected in ways we can't yet understand?" Daniel's heart raced. He leaned closer, his brow furrowed in concentration. "When I found the photo of Emily in your book, everything changed. It was as if the universe was trying to tell me something, but I never imagined it could lead to this." They sat on a bench surrounded by budding flowers, the fragrance of fresh earth filling the air. The conversation had shifted from casual exchanges to something deeper, something laden with the weight of their shared histories. "What if Emily and I were more than just strangers?" Lily continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if we were sisters?" The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Daniel's mind raced, connecting dots he hadn't considered before. But how could that be? Emily was raised in a different environment, a different life. Your mother... He hesitated, searching for the right words. "Your mother must have had a story of her own." Lily nodded, her expression a mix of curiosity and melancholy. "I've always known there were parts of my past that were missing. My mother would sometimes stare into space, lost in thought, as if she was mourning someone she had lost. I never understood it until now." She looked up at Daniel, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. What if she lost a daughter? Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to align, and yet the implications were overwhelming. If this is true, then we need to find proof. We need to understand what happened. Just then, a rustling sound broke the tense silence. Both Daniel and Lily turned to see a figure approaching through the rows of flowers. A man with a weathered face and weary eyes, carrying an air of both authority and desperation. He looked familiar yet out of place, as if he had stepped out of a memory Daniel had not yet recalled. "Excuse me," the man called out, his voice rough like gravel. "I'm looking for Daniel Carter." Startled, Daniel rose to his feet. "That's me. Who are you?" The man hesitated, searching Daniel's face as if he were trying to find something he had lost. "My name is Thomas. I think you and your friend might want to hear what I have to say." He gestured toward Lily, who had instinctively moved closer to Daniel, her eyes wide with apprehension. "What do you want?" Daniel demanded, a protective instinct rising within him. "Why are you here?" "I'm here because of Emily," Thomas said, his voice cracking under the weight of his admission. "Because of the family you both lost." Lily's breath caught in her throat, and Daniel felt the world around him tilt as the man's words sank in. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Thomas took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for the storm he was about to unleash. I am your father. I've been searching for you both for years. After the accident, I lost everything. I thought I would never see my daughters again." Daniel felt a wave of fury wash over him. "You're lying! Emily died in that accident. If you were her father, why didn't you come for her? Why didn't you—" "I couldn't," Thomas interrupted, his voice pleading. "I was in prison when it happened. I didn't even know about the accident until it was too late. When I got out, I tried to find her, but I was lost in my own guilt. I didn't know about Lily until recently." Lily's face paled, and she clutched the necklace tightly as if it could anchor her to the present. You're saying that Emily and I are sisters? That you're our father?" Thomas nodded, tears brimming in his eyes. "Yes, I loved your mother deeply. When she gave birth, things went horribly wrong. She was forced to give you up, Lily. I never wanted to lose either of you. I was powerless to stop it." The revelation hung thick in the air, suffocating and surreal. Daniel's mind swirled with a tempest of emotions, anger, confusion, shock. "Why should we believe you?" He spat, every word laced with venom. "You abandoned Emily when she needed you most." "I know," Thomas replied, his voice breaking. "And I've spent every day regretting it. But I've changed. I want to make things right. I want to meet my daughters, To finally be the father I should have been. Lily's gaze darted between Thomas and Daniel, her heart torn apart by conflicting feelings. You think you can just walk in here and claim us? After all these years? She asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of rage and despair. No, I don't expect forgiveness, Thomas said, his eyes pleading. I need you to know the truth. You're not alone. You have family, and I've missed so much. Please, give me a chance to explain everything. Daniel felt a surge of protectiveness over Lily, a burning need to shield her from the pain this man had brought into their lives. You think this is about you? He challenged. You think you can just come here and rewrite history? Lily stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Daniel's arm. Wait, she whispered. Let him talk. Maybe we should hear him out. There's so much we don't know. Daniel's heart raced as he looked into her eyes, seeing the hope and confusion swirling within her. He wanted to protect her, to keep her safe from the raw wounds that this revelation had ripped open. But he also knew that the truth had a way of clawing its way to the surface, whether they were ready for it or not. All right, Daniel relented, his voice tight with tension. But if you're lying, if this is just a game to you, you'll regret it. Thomas nodded, relief flooding his features. I promise you, I'm here to tell the truth, the whole truth. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the garden, the three of them stood on the precipice of a new reality, one filled with uncertainty, pain, and the faintest glimmer of hope. In that moment, the past and the present collided, setting the stage for a confrontation that would forever alter the course of their lives. With every secret that was about to unfold, Daniel and Lily felt the weight of their shared history pressing down on them, binding them together even as the world around them shifted and shattered. The garden, once a sanctuary, had transformed into a battleground of emotions, and they were left to navigate the tumultuous waters of family, love, and betrayal.